Good evening from Central Pennsylvania, and welcome to another Provident webinar. I'm your host, Ed Mann, Director of Training and Education for Provident. Tonight, I'm happy to host a roundtable discussion with current and former fire chiefs from across the United States. All of the participants have one major thing in common besides being fire chiefs. They've all been awarded the Chief John Buckman Award by Provident. The Chief Buckman Award was created at least 16 years ago between Provident and the Volunteer Combination Officer section of the International Association of Fire Chiefs. The award recognizes a chief officer of a volunteer or combination fire department who stands out on the local or regional level as a true professional and who has demonstrated leadership, integrity, and outstanding values within the fire service. The annual award is presented each November at the Symposium in the Sun in Clearwater Beach, Florida. In addition to the actual award, Provident pays the winner's travel and lodging expenses to attend the award ceremony at the Symposium in the Sun, and the VCOS will waive the recipient's registration fee for the conference. If you know a chief fire officer deserving national recognition for leadership skills, please nominate him or her for the John M. Buckman III Leadership Award. Nominees must be an IFC member. I will introduce the panel shortly, but I need to tell you about Provident and the programs available to protect you and your most valuable asset, your people. Provident got its start in 1902 as an independent insurance agency in the Pittsburgh area, and in 1928 we began serving volunteer fire departments with customized blanket and accident health policies. Today we provide volunteer, combination and career firefighters, emergency medical personnel with a multitude of programs. We now offer many of those same programs to law enforcement. Provident in 2025 was voted one of the best places to work in Pennsylvania. Some of the programs that we offer are accident and health program. And if you're a Provident client and have our accident and health program, the members of your department and your immediate family members have access to our first responder assistance program. We also offer a 24-hour accidental death and dismemberment policy that would provide coverage for an accidental death both on and off duty, a group term life policy for your organization, critical illness and cancer policy that would provide a living benefit for renal failure, a heart attack, stroke, or cancer. And then several years ago here, we got into the Fire Plus Property and Casualty program where we can insure your buildings and equipment and apparatus. The clients of our Fire Plus Property and Casualty also have access to our online Fire Plus Academy, which is actually Fire Rescue One as part of Lexipol with over 800 online courses. Our next webinar is May the 27th with Steve Hirsch, the chairman of the National Volunteer Fire Council. And Steve's going to talk about survival in our business. And that's the end of the introductory show. Folks, you can turn your cameras back on. So tonight, before we begin the roundtable, Chief Buckman, I'd like you to take a few minutes and tell. First of all, you look pretty dapper with a beard and a mustache. I've never seen you. Surprised me when you came on.
Yeah, well, that's it's a granddaughter thing. My
Oh,
granddaughter once said, "Hey, Papa, how about you trying a beard?" So it's been like about 3 or 4 months now, and it's sort of
yeah.
growing on me. So, but thank you very much, Ed, for doing this webinar, and hopefully sharing some information of how fire chiefs can become better leaders, because we have some great examples here with us tonight. But I guess here's the thing that people have asked me, well, how did you get to do what you wanted to do? I said, well, it's pretty easy, actually. I knocked on the door and I said, I'll help you with your problem if you'll help me with mine. So I got the career firefighters to help the volunteers, and then the combination came in. So that was part of what brought me into some kind of national exposure that Provident and VCOS have named this award after me. I would tell you the one piece of advice that my father gave me that I remember to this day, and I think I've tried to do it to the best of my ability, is that I'll turn that off in a minute here, but is it's not about me, it's about we. And what my dad meant by that was I was saying I a lot when I was in a leadership position, and it's never about I. It's about me, but it's more importantly, it's about we, because I can't do anything without all of you participating in whatever project it is we're wanting to do. So that's my opening comments, Ed. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Chief. So I realize we have 6 panelists. Now, while it may seem time consuming, I believe it's important to our listeners to know who they are and what experiences they bring to the table. So, Chief Judy, I'll let you go first. How about introducing yourself to our listeners?
Okay. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm a third-generation firefighter. My dad and my grandfather were volunteers back in Western Pennsylvania. I myself have 37 years in the fire service, working with 3 different fire departments. 2 of those were at the same time. So I have 19 years paid on call and 30 years full-time career. So if you put those together, no, I don't have 49. Some of those were overlap. I'm presently the fire chief in the city of Inver Grove Heights, which is in the state of Minnesota. It's a second-tier suburb of St. Paul. I'm the first full-time fire chief and the first full-time employee that was hired back in 2007. So when I started, we had 60 to 65 paid on-call firefighters, and we now have 40 to 45 paid on call. And the reason for that being is we've morphed into a combination fire department. So we have 15 full-time shift personnel that combine and work 2 different crews 24/7. We have 7 administrative, chief, assistant, deputy chiefs, inspector, and so on. And all of us are, any admin with the exception of the support specialists, are acting firefighters or active firefighters where we're certified and trained at the same level and everything. And then our support specialist is a nationally registered EMT. So all of we have 3 stations, and 2 of those are staffed with our 2 crews. Our community is about 36,000, and last year we ran 3,500 calls. Thank you.
You stay pretty busy. Chief Cash.
Well, thank you for the invite, and it's special for me to get to participate because Chief Buckman is one of my mentors. Thank you, John, for what you've always done for me and my family. And Quentin said hello. But
Thanks.
I'm from Cherryville, North Carolina. I'm outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. We're a small municipality, combination department. I am retired now. I serve as the department chaplain, and I'm dabble in the safety officer aspect to make sure all the troops stay safe. And we have about 12 full-time employees, and the balance of about 35 or 40 would be our volunteers, which are paid on call. And when I left, we was running about 1,700 calls a year. And we have great volunteer fire departments, which are now transitioning into hiring some paid people around us. And I've served my local area, my state, the region, and at the national level, and has extremely been blessed to serve and be involved in the United States Fire Service.
Thanks, Chief Cash. Chief Tim Smith.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm the fire chief at Vincent's Township Fire Protection District in Southwest Indiana, about 60 miles from Chief Buckman's home. And I've known Chief Buckman for my entire career here at the fire department. I started out as a junior firefighter here, one of the first in the program, and then served as a volunteer for several years, and then the volunteer fire chief for several years. And my family owned a private ambulance service 911 provider here, and I had started a family, and they were going to make the fire chief's job full time, and I decided that I wanted to get out of the family ambulance business and come to the fire department, and I'm thankful every day that I did that. So I've been fortunate. I was the first career fire chief here, and I have been the career fire chief here for 32 years, and will be retiring soon. But our department has seen a lot of transition in the years. We've been very fortunate because we were the second fire protection district in the state of Indiana, and they still, while they're more common now, were not really that common till a few years ago. But being a fire district allowed us to have ample funding. And so we currently have 15 career people, including myself, and 35 volunteers. I would say that in our last year, our number of active volunteer firefighters, well trained, has come back up to times where it used to be. So hopefully that continues. We have 4 fire stations. We surround the city of Vincennes, which is a fully career department, and we do automatic aid back and forth with each other. And quite honestly, other than the name on the side of the trucks and on our coach, you would not know it was 2 departments. We just opened a joint training facility that funding was provided for us through the state of Indiana for a new burn tower, training tower. And we also have a community college here, and we staff one of our stations with 3 second-year fire science students who live in the fire station. And that works very well and helps supplement us greatly. It really helps a lot.
Great. So, Chief Mike Morgan.
Good evening, everybody. Mike Morgan. I started as a volunteer back in 1986 in a small town in northwest Colorado called Rifle. Started there, became the first paid employee there in 1991. We started kind of down the path of combination fire department in about 1997, going into 1998. Started reaching out to really try to talk to people that had been through that before, and that's where I came across Chief Buckman and Chief Windish along the way, and started attending VCOS on a regular basis. Actually still attend that every chance I get. I don't think I've missed a year yet. And then I became the first paid chief there for the fire department in Rifle in 1997. We then consolidated into Colorado River Fire Rescue, which consolidated 2 fire departments into one. In 2012, 2016, I was offered the job of the director of the Colorado Division of Fire Prevention and Control. So at the time I left Colorado River, we were about 110 folks, about 45 career, about 30 part-time, and about 25 volunteer. And that became kind of our structure, our hiring pool of bringing people in and bringing them up through the ranks of the system. So 2016, I came to the state of Colorado. I now run the state's fire program, kind of like a traditional state fire marshal's office. But we also we have an operational branch where we do all the wildland fire management and all hazards support to local governments as well. So looking forward to the conversation this evening, and thanks for having me here.
Thanks, Chief Morgan. Chief Cowger from Montana.
Well, thanks for the invite. Happy to be on tonight. So my name's Rich Cowger. I'm the fire chief in Columbus, Montana. That's kind of south central Montana, 40 miles west of Billings, right on I-90. We have a small little rural district here that we cover. We've got a community of about 2,000 people and then a rural fire district of about an additional 4,000 folks. However, little is kind of a misnomer because the district covers about 950 square miles. We do that out of 2 fire stations, um, working on a consolidation to possibly get our third. But currently, we're a combination department of about 57 folks. We have 10 paid, full-time paid. We have 6 resident volunteers that, similar to Chief Smith, live and work in the station, going through college programs, usually to get their certifications, that kind of stuff. And then about 41 volunteers. We do provide full ALS transport, EMS services, as well as a lot of other functions to the community. I started out as a volunteer in a smaller organization here in Montana in about 1990. Went away from the fire service for a little while, came back to the Columbus community in 93, where I started volunteering with them, and then rose up through the ranks relatively quickly. By 2000, I became the fire chief here. And then, so that was at a volunteer side of things. And then 2006, we experienced a rather large wildland fire. And kind of got to the point where it was a deciding factor. I'd spent so much time away from my business. I approached the city council, the rural fire board, about what kind of level of service they wanted. And luckily they said a little bit more and they chose to hire me. So I became the first paid employee in 2008, and then have been in place ever since. I also got the opportunity to spend 15 years as the president of the Montana State Fire Chiefs Association. Just recently turned that over to Chief Waldo, who was president of the IFC for a year ago now, I guess. And currently I have the honor and privilege of serving as the chair of the VCOS Board of Directors. And through that process is where I met John and became acquainted with Chief Buckman, and it's just kind of history.
Great. So just for those listeners, we did have Chief Brian McQueen scheduled to be with us. He has some family issues he's dealing with. He may jump on at some point. He was trying to drive back to his home, and he kept dropping signals. So if he jumps in, we'll have him join the conversation at some point. So Chief Thill, upon receiving notice that you received the John Buckman Leadership Award, what was your first thought? And did you even know you'd been nominated?
Somebody had told me ahead of time, they let the cat out of the bag that I was nominated for something, but I had no idea. And it was one of those things I just kind of blew off until I got the phone call. My first thought, to be honest, I really didn't have a thought. When I got the phone call, I was pretty much incoherent, trying to figure out what to say, what was going through my mind. I just really couldn't even get a full sentence out for a couple minutes. So it was very humbling to get that phone call. But even then, the conversation was more of, thank you very much. I'm very honored. I appreciate it. And that's about all I could get out. And it was Jeff who had called me at that time. But once I hung up and tried to settle down a little bit, my first thought then was, I probably sounded so bad on the phone they might even rescind the award. I literally thought that. And then I didn't hear from Jeff for a couple of weeks, and it's like, maybe they really are going to take back the award. So, but once all the shock wore off and everything and things settled down, obviously very honored to have been nominated, very honored to have received the award, especially the John Buckman Award, because I'd been following Chief Buckman since, I was deputy chief hired in 1996, and that's probably about the time I started following him, to the point where I was a cocky deputy chief and I saw something that he posted. And it was a picture and I didn't like it. So I emailed him and told him didn't like it. He actually responded to me. So from then on out, he had me hooked, and so I've been following him ever since. But just very humbled, very honored. Thank you.
Great. Chief Cash.
Yes, I was similar to Judy in the way that she was notified by Provident. I had not ever had the opportunity to travel to the symposiums simply because of small travel budgets. And I did know that I was nominated. My city manager, along with family members who assisted him, placed my name in nomination, and I got the call, and I was unbelievably amazed, number one, to be chosen, and the privilege and honor to represent the individual named for Chief Buckman. I, like Judy, had been following John and read his articles and knew about his department, and it was such an honor and privilege and a blessing to get to receive that award. The most comical thing was departing Clearwater for the airport and trying to get that award on the airplane. That was a bit of a challenge.
Well, we have downsized it just a little bit since then. So to make it a little easier, uh, still the same intent, but we've downsized it just a little bit. Chief Smith.
Well, I too was very honored and humbled to receive the award. As everyone has spoken about Chief Buckman, we've had a relationship, as I stated earlier, since my start in the fire service and attending training that he provided locally and also at his department that we would go there, travel there that hour to see. And I did not know that I had been nominated until I got the call from Provident that I had won. I had been attending VCOS, the symposium, for a few years because I went once, and it's like you get hooked, I guess, when you go. The program is so good, and the interaction, and there's several from our area that attend each year. And it was really an honor, and an honor that I'm still proud of today to have received. I am don't like the spotlight on me very much, and don't like to put that out, but I was quite honored to receive that award, and again honored with the recognition I received locally for receiving that award. Even though, again, I like all of you, am successful because I'm surrounded by really talented and good, committed people, and so yes, I did know, and yes, I am very honored to be among those that have received the award.
Great. Chief Morgan.
Well, I didn't know in the beginning, but when some of the questions started getting asked to fill out some of the paperwork, I was kind of curious. I knew somebody was up to something, but I wasn't sure what at the time. I think, like everybody said on here, when I got the call from Jeff from Provident and he let me know that I'd been selected, I think my first thought in my mind is, and for those of you who've been going to VCOS for a while, you'll remember this, but I thought, are you sure it's not the Mike Morgan from Kentucky? He was also a great guy. I think, like Chief Smith said, I think, you're humbled and honored, and you kind of wonder why. And I think what Chief Smith said, I think, as you stop and you look at your team and the people around you, and that you have to realize you're accepting an award on behalf of work of a lot of people, and you just have the blessing to be kind of the face that and the name that gets put on the side of it. But I think, like everybody has said, Chief Buckman and VCOS and, Chief Windish and all of the people through, VCOS and the conference, again, to this day, I go to that conference every year as a priority just because of the quality of interaction. And I think it speaks to the name of the Leadership Award and what the VCOS and what the conference really stands for. So again, super humbled at the time. And I told my wife, there's that saying of, behind every successful man stands a woman who couldn't be more surprised, right? So uh, I was very blessed and humbled.
Great. Chief Cowger.
Just as a sidebar, I know Mike's wife, and I'm sure she was surprised. So yeah. But I had started going to the symposium in the sun quite a few years, I think, before I got the opportunity. But I kind of stood back in awe at the board members that were doing what they did, to make that conference so successful. And John's like a godfather of the fire service. And so just to have to be with those folks and kind of interact with them was pretty cool. And no, I had no idea that I had been nominated. Some of my neighboring cohorts around here were the ones that had submitted my name. I found out later. Got the call from Jeff, and first thing that went through my head, I think was why, because I don't remember doing anything to me that stood out. I felt like I was just doing what I should have been doing to leave a better mark on the fire service, and I didn't, and still to this day don't look at that as anything necessarily deserving of an award, but nonetheless, very humbled to get it, especially from the namesake, and even more so now that I've got more opportunity to work with John directly through the VCOS connection. We're in contact quite regularly about different things, about different issues, and the nice thing about it is, again, it's the betterment of the fire service as a whole. So completely honored and humbled to be able to have that award sit behind me on the desk right there, and try to remember every day that I come in what it's about, and hopefully why I was had the opportunity to be awarded it. So.
Well, I think our listeners have a pretty good understanding about the Buckman Award. A little side note, I got involved with a volunteer combination officer section in 2001 when I was the state fire commissioner in Pennsylvania. Initially, they weren't going to let me on the board because I had the title fire commissioner, and I had to prove that I was also a volunteer fire chief. And then 11 years ago, I went to work for Provident. So when I look at the cast that's on here tonight, I've had dinner with Rich when he was awarded. I know I've had dinner with Judy when she won the award. I've had dinner with Tim Smith when he won the award. Jeff and Mike, you guys received the award obviously before I started working at Provident. And, it was really great being able to meet John Buckman when I went on the board. For a while, we both kind of had the same job. He worked for the state of Indiana. I worked for the state of Pennsylvania, and we were able to share some war stories with one another and help one another out with some stuff. So now we had the discussion about the award, and I hope of the 109 listeners that are on here right now, that about 70 of them take the time when the nomination package comes out in another week or two to submit somebody special from their fire department for the award. Now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of leadership. And the first question to the panelists: when dealing with people who are not performing to the organizational standards, what are your techniques in dealing with those individuals? Chief Cowger.
Sure, you're going to make me start off with this one.
Well, yeah, I chose you last for the last two questions, so I moved you to the top of the list on this one.
The challenge is obviously, I mean, we always think about, well, you got career folks and they have to do it because of their job. Well, they don't have to, because they don't have to work here. With our volunteers, we think we need to motivate them. They don't have to be here. Hopefully they're here because of their heart condition and what they want to do for their community. And so, I take that level of commitment with folks seriously enough that I think the big thing is trying to mentor them into what those performances look like. And again, not the expectation without the example. So if we're going to expect it from our folks, we need to show it to them as well, and help them understand the why. Why is the training necessary? Why is the commitment for the responses and the availability necessary? And that it's more than just the T-shirt and the patch that goes along with it. That there's a whole community that relies on our service, and for us to be good stewards of their investment and money, speaking the taxpayer side of things, and really taking seriously what we've given the oath to do. And so with that, there are times where we've got to be serious enough to where we have to have the conversation with people that just says maybe they're not right for this business. But for the most part, I think when we can spend the time to coach and mentor them, and get them to understand the why, most of them will do the best that they can. And in today's day and age, I think we have to have some allowances for what that best that they can looks like, as long as they're taking the job to heart and being safe and training about it and whatnot. Then we're okay. But other times we have to have that tough conversation about whether this is the best place for them or not. And I think if it's not, then we have to be respectful of that, the opportunity that they gave us, and help them to find a respectful way to find another way to occupy their time, but not be demeaning to them about it at all. You're muted, Ed.
By the way, Chief Morgan, you're next. If anybody needs me to repeat the question till we get through all the panelists, speak up and I'll repeat the question. So, Chief Morgan, you're next.
I think kind of building on what Rich had to say. I mean, first thing is to understand why they're not performing. Sometimes I think if we react too quickly, if we don't understand why the performance is lacking, then we don't always make the right reactions to it, or corrective actions to it, I should say. I should start also say, when you get to performance standards, that I'm going to talk about performance as a whole, not, when you get into things that are illegal, immoral, unethical, or somebody's going to die, those are immediate and swift corrections, to correct that behavior immediately. When you get into the performance where people just aren't performing how you think they are, or that how they're expected to perform, I think by sitting down, as Chief Cowger said, and having a conversation with them, try to understand, what's going on in their life, especially in the combination world, because sometimes it's some underlying issue that you're unaware of, and you're able to help them solve things to bring up their performance to the level, by just talking it through with them and making sure that they understand. So I think the first thing is to have a heart-to-heart conversation. What's going on? Here's what our expectations are. Can you tell me what can we do to help you to perform in the ways we need you to, whatever that performance measurement or metrics is. And I think often we're quick to judge, and we tend to feel like that when people aren't performing the way they're supposed to, that it's because it's intentional. And I've found in my career that, that about 98% of the time it's because there's some, they're not performing because they don't realize something they're missing. It's something that I will say, that is small and simple to correct. You've got that 1 or 2%er that they're just doing it because they don't care, or whatever else. And it's larger than that, like Rich said. Sometimes this business isn't made for everybody, but I think, it starts with that conversation. You taking it to the corrective behaviors, educational training, experience, those types of things. And if it gets into something that you need to correct the behavior, by some disciplinary action or whatever, you have to make sure you follow through with that. Otherwise, others quit performing because of the accountability standards.
Thanks, Chief. Chief Smith.
I think it's important that people that are going to volunteer for our agency understand what the commitment is actually before they even begin training. And we went through a period of time where we would have people that would spend an immense amount of time on training and maybe get certified clear through firefighter 2, and then only last about 2 or 3 months, maybe 6 months. So we started looking at what we could do to make that better. And I think this actually came from VCOS, but it was a paper titled "What If," and it went on like, "What if nobody got up at night because you had to go to work the next day," and so on and so forth, all the way down. So we in Indiana our Indiana Fire Chiefs Association was fortunate enough to get a SAFER grant a couple of times, and we IAFC did the administrative work for us then and provided a lot of training to volunteer and combination departments here. And so I think that's important that the person that is wanting to be a volunteer firefighter understands that, and I say this routinely, those that are joining, they're not here. We don't want them here. They don't want to join a club for something to do. If that's something they want to do, they need to go to the Elks or something like that. We want them to have a good time and to build relationships and be able to do things away from here. But we want them to understand that if they make that commitment, their fellow firefighter and the citizen is expecting them to be their best and to respond and be out there. So for the most part, that has helped with that turnover initially. But we obviously have problems from time to time. And like the others have said, unless we ask, most people don't come to us and say, "Hey, I'm having this problem at home or at work," or anything like that. And so each one of our members, like every place I'm sure, is on a team or a company. And it starts with the company level officer. They have to make that relationship, and they have to mentor that person and get that person comfortable enough with them that they will kind of open up to them so that we know when they have issues. And eventually it does get to my desk, and I will sit down with them and talk to them about, the commitment. And most of the time we find that the person, it's not that they don't want to do it, they really want to, but for some reason they can't do it. And so we always make sure that they understand, just like he said, that we're appreciative of them and we admire them for coming here and giving it their all. But at this time, maybe it's not working. If you can pick it up, we're glad to keep you. If not, step aside and come back when you can, because we always need people. But I think the most important two things are that they have to understand what they're getting into. I many times say it's like having a part-time job and not getting paid. And then we have to understand it's different today than it was when I came on. Lives are different. The amount of activities that their families are involved in. Some of them have multiple jobs. Their spouse works maybe more than one job. So everybody is fighting for that time. And we, as administrators, have to realize that and have to be able to work around those time schedules.
Okay. Chief Cash.
I'm agreeing with several of my colleagues. One thing I did want to emphasize is expectations. It's important that the troops know the expectations, that we've trained them well. And back to what Mike stated, 98%, there's usually no issue. But that 2% sometimes you have to focus on, do a little extra, work a little harder. And what I've learned is sometimes that it's issues that's external that they're bringing to the station that are really causing the problems. But coming from an agriculture background, paternal and maternal, my great uncles raised tomatoes and apples. And sometimes you have to sort through the fruit and the vegetables, and sometimes you can find a bad one. So down south, we call that culling them. We cull those vegetables or those fruits. So once the fruit starts to turn bad and they're placed in the box and shipped out to the market, that fruit or that vegetable can start rotting and doing damage to the fruit around it. So at that point, it becomes a serious decision and some serious matters that we have to talk about. And sometimes, like somebody said, it's just not the right fit. But back to that agriculture backgrounds, I've kind of utilized that philosophy throughout my career that one or two pieces of bad fruit or vegetable can spoil the whole package.
All right, Chief. Thanks. Chief Still.
Uh, and I agree very much with what Jeff just said. We call it a cancer. The cancer will continue to go throughout the organization if you let those negative people stay on. But I don't know which is worse, going at the end or going at the beginning, but because I pretty much agree with everything that's already been said. I'll expound a little bit on kind of more details, I guess, of what we do. Like was said before, we sit down and talk to them, find out what's going on, because it usually is something external. I don't think anybody, not at least not too many people, come to the fire department or any kind of job and say, I really want to have a miserable day. They want to come and have a good day, but some of them just either don't have the motivation or have lost the motivation along the way. So we talk to them, find out what is really going on in their life. You know, they could be having struggles at home. They could, family, spouse, kids could have some kind of illness or there's something going on there. They themselves might be having some physical or mental health issues that they're dealing with that they just really don't want to tell anybody. So really sitting down and talking to them. But even before that, you need to make sure your officers have the trust of their personnel before they get to that point. So somebody feels comfortable in sitting down and talking about some of these issues and getting into a little bit more detail to help basically get to the root cause of the issue. And then from there, figure out what they might need. You know, do they need to take a break from the fire department? They need to take a leave. We have leaves for our on call as well as our full-time staff, and they have their vacations and personal time off and so on. But we even have vacation and leave time for our paid on-call staff. Now we have a mental health provider that we provide to all of our staff, and do they maybe need to go sit down with that person? Really, is it something very deep where they really just have to step away from the fire department because this isn't going to work for them anymore? Bottom line, though, is they need to perform and be able to perform at 100%. Not everybody's going to bring a total 100% every time, but we have to set those expectations, like has been already mentioned. And if they're not doing what they need to do, find a way to help them to get there. And, that may involve some type of progressive discipline up along the way. But when people think of performance issues, they typically think of behavioral issues. And maybe, especially when you have combination department, that the volunteers or the on-call, the non-career personnel, maybe they aren't real confident in a skill and they've been able to kind of skirt by, and you just notice them, recently or something like that where they aren't able to do something. Maybe it's something so simple as helping them build that skill back up and build their confidence back up, and just working with them. So really is. It's just a really important communication to sit down and start with that conversation and see where it takes you from there.
So I've heard two underlying comments that all of you made to one degree or the other, and that is one, clearly define the expectations. And when people aren't living up to the expectations, let's find out why. And sometimes it might be talking to the company officer, or sometimes it might be you as the chief having to sit down with the individual, because as all of you related or conveyed, there could be some outside influence that's, you know, that is creating the problem for them on the job. So I think that's pretty important. So I'm going to, with the next question, and we can have a discussion. You don't have to stick this to my questions, because this next one might create a discussion among you. I remember the last time I did a panel discussion with the Volunteer Combination Officer section, Chief Cowger and Chief Windish had a friendly discussion because they didn't agree with one another on, I don't remember what the question was, but it was a serious discussion, but it was a friendly discussion, and it just happened to show that there were two different opinions on the question, and that's fine with this next question. So some of you both have career and volunteer staffing. Do you treat them differently on performance expectations? If so, how and why? Chief Morgan, you're first.
Gee, thanks, Ed. Um, so on performance, I'm going to dig into the weeds a little bit to be clear on this, or as clear as I can, is that um, we know that fire doesn't care. The enemy doesn't care if it's career, volunteer, you know, and so when it comes to performance, no, absolutely not. Now, because everybody's got to perform to those same safe levels and perform the functions and the duties proficiently. In terms of hours available or numbers of repetitions, some of that, yeah, you've got to have a little bit of latitude and flexibility to work with, you know, a volunteer schedule versus a career schedule. And I think that becomes part of the culture, and that you have to build in your career departments or your career firefighters need to spend the time with the members to make sure that everybody's proficient at the skills that need to be performed. I think one of the other things that is important with this particular question is how you approach it. You know, as I mentioned in our organization, when I was running the combination department, we still have a couple volunteer folks helping us out at the division too. But you know, we used that was kind of our hiring pool. So people were at different levels in the organization, working their way up to be a lot of them, most of them we hired from internally, that they got to that proficient level. So I think the importance of the leadership and management of that structure is making sure that you don't you do your best to put people in positions where they don't fail. You know, don't put them into a circumstance where they're operating way above their capability and capacity, because then we're setting them up to fail. But I also think it's important to make sure that you know, don't set them up to fail, but make sure you set them up to test. You know, I think at times, you know, when we pull up on an incident and it would be, you know, a pretty benign event, and you know, immediately they'd be like, okay, you're here on scene, I want to, you know, transfer command, and it would be, no, you're doing fine. I'm going to stand over here to the side and I'm going to help you. And it's kind of that old proverbial saying of, you know, people are going to break things along the way. I mean, you tell your kids not to touch the hot stove, they're going to touch the hot stove once, right? So you got to be able to recognize when it's when they have a red Solo cup that they're about to break, versus when they have the delicate china. So I think that's part of leadership and management, interacting with your people, recognizing where they are. When it comes to, you know, the certain things, performance has got to be what performance is, but you've got to work with your people to mature them along the way and make sure that everybody understands that we're a mission driven organization. It's not about a paycheck, or that has nothing to do with it. It's all about the mission first.
Okay, thanks, Chief. Chief Smith.
Well, I agree with what he said. We are fortunate that our career staff, we were a combination department from the word go, from when it started, and our career staff comes from our volunteer members and those members that want to be career firefighters, whether it's with us or with somebody else, work hard to get their certification levels and keep them up. And I agree that their performance standard has to be equal. But our career guys do train as far as hours and repetitions, and much more than our volunteer members. However, our volunteer members are not prevented from coming to our career when our career people are training, and vice versa, and that happens a lot. So if a volunteer misses their training opportunity, they many times come when the career guys are training and train with them, and vice versa. And I think that I feel comfortable in saying we have no animosity between career and volunteer members here. And if a career guy is lacking in what they're doing, and they are treated just like a volunteer who is lacking, and the trust is there for those that are performing. And but realistically, our career guys get a whole lot more training hours in the year than our volunteers do, because they basically train every shift except on the weekends. So we also we participate in regional special teams. All of our career staff is on one special team. At least, they have to be. And our volunteers are not required to do that. Some choose to, and if they choose to be on a special team, then they do have to do the same amount of training for that specialty as the career people. And those that want to be on the team do that, and they know that going in.
All right, thanks, Chief. Chief Cash.
Kind of the same things my peers have said, but our guys and gals, they work toward meeting the minimum standard that the state has set aside. But having volunteers, there's no way that we have the expectation that everybody is an interior firefighter. So we have sort of teams as well. And part of the caveat of that system is to some people are non-entry level type or support functions, throwing ladders, helping with ventilation, things that, for example, prohibit them from doing interior firefighting. For example, I had one great guy who was medically not allowed to do interior firefighting, even though he loved that part of the role, the job. But guess what? To our advantage was he was a Class A diesel mechanic, and he fit right into a location and a place within our organization that worked for everybody involved, including the community and the municipality. So there's ways to look at those different levels and put them to work and to do the area that they specialize in, that they love, and just try to make a road and a bridge for everybody to contribute back to their community, which is usually the number one goal of everybody involved.
All right. Chief Thill.
Well, very similar to what others have said. Also, they both have to know the basics. They both have to know their jobs because, like was said before, when somebody calls 911, they don't care whether they're volunteer, paid on call, part-time, or full-time. We try to treat ours almost exactly the same. Obviously, there's different things like union contracts because our career does have our part of the IAFF. And because of like what's been said, fewer reps and a little less training time, then the paid on call obviously don't get quite as much time hone their skills like the full-time too. So we have a tendency to maybe give them an extra little bit of grace in some of those expectations, but obviously it's situation dependent. If it's something very serious, it's something very basic that they should be knowing, that's a whole different thing. And then we might be looking at progressive discipline. But we run kind of a duty crew type program. So we have one full-time officer, one full-time firefighter, and one paid on-call firefighter. And the paid on call work either 4 8-hour shifts. So we have 5 shifts a day. Overnight is 8 hours. And they all train together. They all work together. We do shift hands-on training, shot drills on a regular basis. And everybody needs to work together and try to make sure. And that's a really good way for our officers to keep track of everybody to make sure that they are keeping up with their skills and to notice those times where they might be not performing their best and catch that when it's early rather than wait until it gets to a really bad time in their career. But yeah, try to treat them as much as you can the same. That's the very important thing that I have in my mind.
All right, thanks, Chief. Chief Cowger.
When we transitioned into a combination system from completely volunteer, one of the things that we emphasize to all of our folks is that if the volunteers could keep up with the call volume and the demands of what we're doing today, I wouldn't need paid staff. And vice versa, if my paid staff could keep up with the demands and the call volume, I wouldn't need volunteers. So the symbiotic relationship there is I need both of them. I can't do we can't do, our community's not positioned in such a way that we will probably get anything more than a combination system. And personally, that's okay. I love the combination system. And so having said that, yeah, we have to treat them the same. In our particular system, I really only have 1 or 2 paid folks that are actually responding to the incidents during the day, unless it bumps up enough to where I've got to go, and then everybody's worried that I actually know what I'm still doing out there, kind of stuff, which is sometimes probably a legitimate concern. However, in our particular case, what I would say is sometimes I see even our paid staff gets a little too comfortable with where they think they're at over our volunteers. And I'd throw out there that I think some of our volunteers could probably outperform some of our paid staff. Now, we don't want it to be that way, right? Because we are totally reliant on everybody understanding the job and performing to the level that nobody really has to worry about whether so-and-so is responding on the engine with them or on the ambulance and everything like that. So we really make an opportunity and drive it home to folks to make sure that, like's been said multiple times here, is that it's not about the paycheck or not the paycheck. It's about once you're on the engine and you're on scene, do you know what you're doing to make sure that everybody gets home safely? And so those performance standards it's non-negotiable. I think, like Chief Morgan said, what's negotiable is about the matter of time that you might be able to put in. Obviously, one's paid to do a little bit more time than our volunteers, but we've asked our volunteers to go away from that traditional respond from home kind of thing and put actual time in the station when they can, if they can. And so that they're part of that, hopefully, daily training with those shifts and whatnot, and to put the emphasis on that. But at the end of the day, everybody's expected to pull the hose load the same way, advance it, ladder, whatever the case may be, set up the traffic control on the interstate. There's no difference between, there's no badge on anybody's uniform that says career or volunteer. So in the public's eyes, they are the same function, the same people. Nobody really knows who's getting the paycheck and who isn't.
So 2 points that I heard here, 2 the chiefs pointed out that a lot of their volunteers work through the system and become paid people. So you have a pool of people that enter your department as a volunteer, and when the opportunity presents itself, they have an opportunity to become a career firefighter, which I think is a good thing in today's environment. Also, Chief Cash pointed out something about 25 years ago, maybe a little longer, when I got involved with a local fire department. There was an individual who was in his early 60s. He drove an LP gas truck every day for a living, and he decided he wanted to do nothing but drive the tanker tender at our firehouse. He didn't want to drive an engine. He didn't want to do anything else. He wanted to drive the tender. So I said, okay, you have to have an EVOC course, an emergency vehicle operators course. We need to get you into a rural water movement class. I want you to at least do pump one, state level training. The township supervisors approached me and said he doesn't have his basic firefighting class. He can't drive. I said, so you're telling me that you want me to take a 62-year-old man and make him crawl around on his hands and knees with 18 to 20-year-old kids taking an essentials of firefighting class when all he wants to do is drive a tanker? My point in all that is, in today's environment, when you have somebody that comes along who is 62 years old and says, that's all I want to do. I don't want to drive the engine. I don't want to squirt water. I just want to drive that Mack tanker you have in the fire station. I think making those accommodations in today's environment are okay by me. It was 25 years ago, and I think it still needs to be today. We have to kind of move with the times. Like you said, Chief Cowger, your volunteers can't do it without your paid people, and your paid people can't do it without the volunteers. And there are a lot of communities in our country that will never see a full-time career fire department because the tax base simply isn't there. So sometimes we have to find new ways of skinning a cat, so to speak. So, folks, there appears to be a nationwide trend towards combination departments. It's not that there appears to be, there is. I've been out of the fire commissioner's office 11 years in Pennsylvania, and prior to my departure 11 years ago, every year we got grant applications. I could see more and more combination departments popping up across the Commonwealth. So, with that in mind, what bit of advice would you give to the leadership of a department that is considering a combination department? Based on your experiences, we'll start with Chief Smith.
Well, I think that it's important. It's just like any leadership responsibility, no matter who you're dealing with. It's treat people the way you want to be treated. Be fair and consistent in your rules and your organization, and work hard to make it one department, not a two department. The career staff and the volunteers. I think you have to be diligent at working at that every day to make sure that everybody meshes together, and that you can't tell, or the public can't tell, when that firefighter gets off the truck, if it's a career firefighter or a volunteer firefighter, that they're able to do their job and serve the public, because that's what the public wants. They don't care. And I think that's very, very important. I think the professionalism, our members, whether they're career or volunteer, for the most part, police themselves as far as their appearance, how they represent their department, even when they're just out in public. Because in a small community, everybody knows who's on the volunteer fire department, or who's a volunteer firefighter or a career firefighter. And if we have somebody that's out of bounds, rarely do I have to deal with it. Most of the time, our folks take care of that before it gets to me. and that's because they're proud of where they are, and so I think that's important, is that people have to be proud. I think that also, and I've honestly changed my opinion about this a little bit over the years. um, I, I don't think the volunteers should become reliant on the career firefighters to do all the things that are like the 2 a.m. lift assist or the but I have changed my philosophy on that, because why do we need 6 people to get up for a 2 a.m. lift assist when we've got people on station? We don't even tone out the volunteers unless you need help at 2 a.m. because I'll be honest, that's what our daytime used to be our problem. Our problem now is 10 p.m. till 6 a.m. people getting out of bed when they got to get up and go to work in the morning. And so that is something that we have transitioned to, is that our on-duty staff takes care of most in-home medical calls. And unless it's just, we don't say you can't go. I mean, if they want to turn their pager to the open slot and hear everything that's going on, they can still go. But I think that my point is, I kind of rambled on there, but is that you've got to be consistent. The message has to be consistent that we are one fire department.
All right. That's great advice. Chief Cash.
I'll be brief with my answer. And this goes back to a class I took under Ron Chivas, and some of you remember that name from North Carolina, that to do this transition, you've got to have all stakeholders involved and at the table and flush out every potential hurdle and stumble and rock and creature crawling under each rock to make sure that everybody's at the table and everything's talked about and discussed. But the basic thing, you just need to communicate, cooperate, and collaborate, and the transition can go smoothly.
All right, great, Chief. Chief Phil?
Well, I'll start out with plan it out. Not just look at the next year or two, plan out next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years of how you think you might need to get there. It's obviously going to change as you move along, but just put some pen to paper and really plan out how you see this working out. Make sure you include all of your staff, no matter who you have. Admin staff, paid on call if you have any part-time or whatever, include them in the conversation, in the communication. Make sure you keep the people above you informed, whether that's a city council, a town board, a county board, a district board, or whatever. Make sure they know what the plan is too. And that way, when you come back, if you can share your plan with them when you come back year after year to ask, okay, you gave us these that last year, thank you very much. Now we're coming back for year 2 of our plan and that type of thing. And again, like I said, you're going to revise it along the way. Don't just assume because it worked for one department, something that it worked for others. A lot of combination departments around here started with duty crews. Some of them were, just a weekend or an overnight or something like that, or a day duty crew. We just stopped cold and told everyone on this day we're going to go 24/7 duty crew. And obviously we called them back for larger calls and so on. But yeah, we just bit the bullet and did it right off the bat. So we now have the 2 crews in the city that are covering for us. We try to keep everything as similar as possible. They train together. But one of the things we've been very fortunate is, like others have said, out of the 22 full-time that we have, other than the support specialist and myself, everybody has been hired from within our paid on-call staff. And that has been my goal all along. The way I look at it is, if they're willing to give up their time as a paid on-call volunteer firefighter for this community, why would we go outside? And they're already trained, they already know our policies and procedures and so on. So I think it's very important to really consider that as you're moving forward and try to create the opportunities so they can learn more, so they are ready to be hired on when you have openings. One real big piece of advice, don't forget the administrative staff you need as you're trying to build your combination department. Too often, you say, okay, we're going to hire, we got a grant for 9, and might be the full-time fire chief, and maybe if you're lucky, you have an assistant, full-time assistant fire chief, and you already have a big job with just those 2. Now you're going to add staff and staffing and those types of things, as well as everything comes along with full-time. And too many departments forget in their plans the administrative people that you're going to need to help build things up. Biggest thing is just be strong on communication and honest and upfront with what you're trying to do with your personnel, as well as the powers to be in your community.
Chief, that's an excellent point on the administrative piece. Sometimes I think we may drop the ball there. You end up as the paid chief and you have an assistant chief, and now you're so busy taking care of paperwork, you're not able to really pay attention to the other nuts and bolts that need to be taken care of. That's an excellent point. Chief Cowger.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take this a little bit different direction. The advice given by the folks ahead of me is good stuff. For those folks that are considering it and maybe holding back because of negativity, we got to remember what our mission is and what our job is. And I'm saying this going looking at a consolidation with another neighbor of ours that's fully volunteer, and some of the things that they're looking at is, well, we're going to lose control and we're going to lose our identity and we're going to lose this and we're going to lose that. However, when the tones go off, they forget that they got to call in their neighbors because they don't have enough staffing to do it themselves and this and that and on down the line. And so what I mean by that, and that's not to be disrespectful to them at all, but what's our saying, 200 years of tradition impeded by progress? The fact that we're like, well, by God, we've been this for all of these years. And as we move to this combination system, we're going to lose out on something. And the analogy that I like to use with people that present that kind of stuff to me is, we all sat through high school or college or whatever the case may be and went through history class. And we learned about from the beginning of time or whatever the case may be to where we are today. And we did that by a series of chapters in a book. And all we're really doing is creating another chapter in that history book for our community and our service to them. And if that means that we can't sit there on one hand and say, well, we're going to complain about a lack of volunteers or we're going to complain about this, but here's a tool that's presented to us that we're not willing to explore. And so what I would encourage folks is, for God's sakes, be willing to explore that tool. You can't complain about it and not do something progressive about it on the other side. And as all the other chiefs have mentioned, there's a lot of work that goes into it, right? And it's going to change how we do business. There's no doubt about it. But that doesn't mean that we have to give up on our history and our traditions of how we got to where we were or are, and those things that made it important to us for our communities, that we can still capitalize on that. And I'll go back to my statement earlier of my volunteers can't do it without my career folks, and my career folks can't do it without my volunteers. To keep that in mind, that we need each other to provide a service to the community that we've sworn to uphold and do. And if that's the way we've got to do it now with a combined system, then that makes sense. Don't overwork our volunteers. Don't overtax our taxpayers if we don't have to. But go into it with an open mind and look at the benefits that it brings those that we serve. And out of that, then we'll get the benefits from that as well. And so that's just a different direction that I was thinking about as folks were talking about that, Ed.
Thanks, Chief. Chief Morgan?
I'm going to be brief too. I think I agree with everything that's been said along the way there. The only thing that I would add is that I would make sure everybody stays very focused. I said this earlier, be very mission focused in a combination department, and be mission focused in any department. Combination fire department is not a goal. A combination fire department is a tool to achieve a goal. So start by defining what the goal is, defining what the expectation, what does your community expect? What are the resources you have available to you? And start from that level, working very closely with your community, with your elected officials, and defining what that desired performance metrics or outcome is, and then start building. If you end up in a situation where you decide, hey, combination is the best path for us to do that. That helps drive your staffing models. That helps drive your administrative models. It helps drive everything that you're up to. And then, as many have said on this call already, there will be conflict, no doubt about it. But you will have people that like Rich was just saying. I had people that were threatening to pull in, park in front of a bay door in the early part of the consolidation because the volunteers weren't getting, they didn't get to go out on the first due truck. And it's like, that doesn't fulfill the mission. Bring another truck. We're not telling you can't come. You're part of the mission, but stay focused on what the mission is. And that helps drive and build the bigger picture of how you staff. And then when you get into that conflict, you can step in and you can just say, hold on a minute. We have a mission to fulfill, and what decision do we need to make right now to fulfill the mission, that this is about the community we serve. If you're getting, well, I think everybody on this call would agree. If you're going to do a combination department because you want kudos, that's the wrong motivation, because it's the most painful process you will ever go through. And you will get beat up by career staff, by volunteers, by electeds, by the community. You have to stay focused on the mission. And every time the road veers a little and somebody tries to go down a different path, you have to grab them, pull them right back in to say, no, this is about the mission, not about me, not about you. Stay focused. Keep your eye on the prize.
So I have not been part of transitioning to a combination department. But 25 plus years ago, in the community where I live now, the county I live now, there was discussion about 4 fire departments consolidating with one another. Four separate fire companies in the same municipality. And I was one of those people that was pushing it. I've been a proponent of that for years. And one of the local businessmen put an editorial in the newspaper that it was time that the 4 fire departments consider it. So my mission was to go talk to each of the 4 fire companies. And on Sunday morning, I showed up at one of the fire stations, and there was probably 50 people gathered for the meeting. And the editorial had been printed out and blown up about 5 times its regular size, and my name was circled, highlighted, and I won't repeat what was written next to my name. It started with the word A and ended with an E. You fill in the blanks. And I go to this meeting. I was kind of fearful for my life initially. And near the end of the meeting, probably the oldest gentleman in the room stood up and said, I have a question for you. More of a statement. He said, so what you're saying to me is, or what you're saying to us is, we have an opportunity now to control our own destiny, or somebody else is going to control it for us. So fast forward to today, there are 2 of those stations left because over the course of a period of time, some consolidations have taken place. The last official thing I did as a fire chief, I worked with a neighboring department in our township, and we went through a consolidation in 2019, 2020. And to the points all of you have made, if you could keep everybody focused on, as Chief Brunacini used to always say, it's all about Mrs. Smith. It made it easier Yeah, we lost some people along the way, but we also picked up some pretty good people along the way. So I have to agree with everything that's been said here by all of you. So as we near the end of tonight's webinar, Chief Buckman, you're going to have to log back in here in a minute because you're next. Do you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom you'd like to share with our audience? And I'll start with Chief Cash.
Yes, that will be easy. Over my 40 years in the fire service, I've learned two or three things. And a lot of people are looking for the right individuals to be a part of their organization, whether that's career or volunteer paid on call. But as the leader, whether you're a lieutenant, a captain, a mid-level officer, upper officer, the fire chief, or the commissioner, you have to be the example that you're looking for in individuals. Next, kind of a leadership philosophy, be not afraid of moving slowly, be afraid of standing still. And my favorite one, advice to any new officer, is for the troops themselves, you have to train them, trust them, and love them. I'd like to thank you, Ed, for serving as moderator. John, thank you. VCOS and Provident for all you do for the fire service. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief Cash. Chief Still?
Oh, the biggest piece of advice I can give anybody, whether they're just starting out in the fire service or working their way up mid-level officer or fire chief, is build relationships. Those relationships are going to be so, so important. If you're at the top already or near the top, the relationships that you have with your, again, whoever's in charge of you, city council, board, or whatever, the first time that they talk to you, you don't want to be that first time being when you go in front of them and ask for money or ask for staffing or anything like that. You want to have a relationship built with them already. Too many non-fire department, city departments, department heads, they don't understand the building relationship. They call it brown nosing. But if you're in a fire department, you understand that, you're part of that community, and those elected officials and so on are part of that community too. So it's important to have those relationships with them, but continue to build relationships with obviously your mutual aid partners, the county, state fire chiefs association, state fire department association, and get involved. You can start small, so maybe something on the local level, something on the county level. Get involved and build those relationships. If you have a chance to take outside classes, take outside classes, even if you can afford to pay for them, even if you have to pay for it yourself. And those people that are in your class, get to know a couple, start building relationships, keep in touch with those people, keep in touch with the instructors, and build those relationships. Those are going to be the instructors are going to be your mentors as you're working your way up the ladder. The other people in your class are going to be your confidants as you're trying to work your way up the ladder. And once you get to the chief level and so on, you're really going to need those confidants, and you're going to still need those mentors because, like we always say, education, training never stops in the fire service. You're always going to be learning something along the way. So really just important, build relationships, start small, start local, but start building them up as you start going up the ladder.
Thanks, Chief. Chief Cowger?
Love the job. It's really as simple as to understand we're public servants, to do it with pride, be proud of what we do, but not arrogant. I think if we go back to the listening to all these panelists that received the award from Chief Buckman, is do it with humility and understanding that we serve the community and we serve each other to make sure that we're successful as we go through this career path. And by doing that, then we also look beyond. We look 5-10 years down the road. We look for those opportunities that we can leave a lasting impression on how do we do it better for everybody involved. go back to your consolidation thought processes and everything. At the end of the day, it's not about us. It's about our organizations. Yeah, we'll be a name in the history book, but that history is going to continue to go on. So love the job and do it humbly. Be proud of it. And by just doing those things and thinking about the things that Brunacini used to say, by God, be nice to each other. Take care of each other, and it's amazing what opportunities will open up to you as you go down that process.
Thanks, Chief. Chief Morgan?
What's the military saying? Mission first, people always. I think keeping that in mind, which builds on, I think, a lot of what everybody's already said. And, stay focused on the mission, stay focused on the people, stay focused on the relationships. I always think of, Stephen Covey, seek first to understand and then to be understood. Or as my grandmother used to say, God gave you two ears and one mouth. So there's a reason for that. So I think listening to what you're being told, and then to understand, to bring it all back to the mission and what we're really trying to do. The next comment that I would say, just my last closing comment for this, would be, I learned a long time ago to hire the heart and train the hands. Bring the right people in from the beginning. If you have people that have the heart, that want to be there, and the desire to be there, and they're focused on what the mission is, you can train those people. I watched people I've done it, where you'd bring people in because they have this set of skills or certifications, and then nobody can get along with them, and you create all these other problems. So I think I'm a big believer in hire the heart and then train the hands, because it's much easier to fix a training issue than it is a personal trait. And I'll just leave it at that.
Excellent point, Chief. Chief Smith?
Well, I would end. Everything that everyone said is absolutely true, and I think that you have to go in every day and push really hard, and you push that your people are the best, that your organization is the best, and that you are the best that you can be to serve your community. And I think that if you have that attitude, and the attitude that it's not all about you or the fire department, even, it's about your community, and that everybody has to work together to make your community the best it can be. I think that two sayings or hashtags or missions, we've talked a lot about being mission focused. I think to remember that your life is our mission, and that working together works. And I think if you keep those things in mind and you be nice to people, that you will be successful.
Thanks, Chief.
Chief Man.
Buckman?
Oh,
Yes.
sorry. Could I
Go
just
ahead.
add one more thing real quick,
You
please?
certainly can, Chief.
Don't be afraid to show your personnel that you care about them.
Absolutely.
There you go. I learned early on in the military years ago, you take care of the troops will take care of you. One way or the other. If you treat them right, they'll take care of you. You treat them wrong, they'll take care of you, but it won't be in a good way. Chief Buckman, final thoughts or words of wisdom from you for our listeners.
Well, it's been an honor to listen to the experience that these recipients have experienced and how they've been willing to share some of that with you. The thing about what you're doing as a leader is it is about serving people. And don't forget that that's what it's about. And Judy's comment about show them you care. Chief Jack McElfish, good friend of mine, taught me the power of touch. He would, you're having starting an argument with somebody, just put your hand on their shoulder and watch how bet it will calm them down. So understand the power of touch goes a long way in helping keep that conflict minimized. Not going to eliminate it, but could minimize it. Thank you, Ed.
Thanks, Chief. So before I move on, I want everybody to know, and this isn't in my notes, that whenever the John Buckman nomination package is ready to go out, obviously with all the webinars we've done in the last couple of years, we've amassed quite the email list. We're going to make sure that that gets shared with the email list that we have through constant contacts, especially those that were on here tonight. I know it can be difficult when we have a lot of nominations to go through, but I'd much rather go through 50, 60, 70 nominations instead of only 3 or 4 each year. So we can do this award right this year and get lots of nominees.
Ed, let me say something about
Yes,
that.
Chief.
And I will tell you, when you will go to fill it out, it's a Google Docs form, and it will probably take you less than 15 minutes to nominate that person. Obviously, you got to know them, but the hardest thing you'll have to get is their fire department's budget. So just be prepared. If you're going to nominate them, maybe you want to call and find out what their budget is. It's one of the questions. Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Chief. I want to remind our audience there'll be a brief survey we'd like you to complete. Keep an eye open in your email for me tomorrow that'll have your certificate of attendance for tonight's webinar. Again, tonight's episode will be uploaded to providentins.com, and you'll receive that link in the email within the next day. Please make sure you check your spam or junk email before you send me an email telling me you didn't get your certificate. For those of you who use the webinar as a training for a group of people, when you receive the thank you email from Sam tomorrow, there'll be an Excel spreadsheet attached. Please use this to send the names and email addresses to us for certificates. It makes things a whole lot easier for me to do the certificates. You can view previous webinars at www.providentins.com and use the training resources link in the upper right-hand corner. Join us on May the 7th at 7 p.m. when Chief Steve Hirsch, Chairman of the NVFC, on the subject of firefighter health. You know, those things that keep taking the lives of our brothers and sisters. Until we meet again, stay safe for your family's sake.